out some stuff. I can't. Okay.
Had your
Okay, we ready to get started, Chief? Can't hear, Chief.
All right, can you hear me now?
I can now.
All right, excellent. All right, I pushed the right button. All right, so calling the meeting to order, the governance committee for our online version WebEx meeting. And I'll start off by doing a roll call of the official members of the governance committee. Chief Doug Ebeltoft.
here.
Chief Dennis Jones.
Here.
Welcome, Dennis, by the way. Welcome back to Anoka County.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be back.
Chief Jeff Caters. All right, Commander Dave Paschal. I think I see Dave on the list. Dave, are you
Unmute,
there?
Dave.
I'm here.
Excellent. Anoka County Attorney Tony Palumbo.
Here.
Mayor Tom Ryan Blaine. I don't see him on my list. Anoka County Commissioner Scott Schulte.
He's here.
I can see you, but can't hear you, Scott.
There you go.
Here.
All right, excellent. Communications, Val Springs-Anatic.
I'm here.
All right, excellent. Mayor Trude from Andover.
I'm here.
All right, and then just looking down, I think I can see most of the people on the list. Britta Maddox. There, Britta.
Yep, I'm here.
Britta Maddox. Corey Camp from Finance.
Yeah, Brad, I'm here.
I don't know if it's CS Carlson, if that person could introduce themselves.
Yes, I'm here. It's Colleen Carlson, accountant, Anoka County.
Okay. Dee Guthman, are you present?
I'm here.
And George Jensen.
Present and accounted for.
Jason Nyhart.
I am here.
All right, is there anybody else that I'm missing?
Yes, this is Kathy Tim. I'm here.
Oh, there you are, Kathy. All right, excellent. All right, good. Then the meeting is officially ordered. First order of business then is approval of the minutes for the April 15th meeting, and I know the minutes have been circulated, and I would be looking for somebody to approve the minutes.
Mayor Trude, I'll move approval.
And a second.
Schulte, second.
Motion by Trude, second by Schulte. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right. Subcommittee report. First is the Budget Committee and the project status, which is me. My financial status report was included with the financial documents that were provided as a whole by Corey Camp from Anoka County Finance. You'll notice that the unspent balance is $147,516, which is $27,500 different than the previous financial status report, and that $27,500 reflects a final system acceptance payment made for the fire records management system. And if I'm not mistaken, then George, there's no further payments to be made at all for the fire system. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm assuming that, does anybody have any questions that are related to the financial status report? All right, then we can move on then to next payments, which is George Jensen. George.
So there's approximately $189,000 sitting out there on a final payment that we negotiated right after we brought the system fully on, fully operational. Out of $189,000, we have about a $96,000 credit sitting there that we'll use at the time they present us with the bill. There's one item that we're waiting on, and that's NCIC queries, being able to query from inside a FBR. And we're figuring the best case scenario is 1 October or in the October timeframe that we'll be able to do that and close this project out. But as always, I would not hold my breath for that to happen. So that's where we stand right now. If we have plenty of money left in the budget, we'll come in under, and we're still waiting on TriTech to be able to meet the needs of the county, finish meeting the needs of the county. I'm sorry, Central Square at this point.
Central Square. All right, so does anybody have any question on next payments? All right, excellent. Then we'll move on to financial status report. Corey.
All right. Thanks, Chief Wise. Good afternoon, everybody. So I guess what I'm going to go through is we've got the budget document in here. Is that what we're talking about on the agenda, Chief Wise?
Yeah, it's the whole package.
The whole
packet
package,
of
right?
papers that you provided. If you just want to run through it in your order, that works for me for sure.
Okay, so well, I want to start with the letter that was put out there. This is kind of the precursor for what goes up to the JLEC later this month for final adoption or request for final adoption of the 2021 budget. So as we look at the 2021 preliminary budget that we've been talking about over the last couple of months, there's no changes to the super formula overall, so that is all the same. We have updated the formula, or at least the law portion of the formula, with the 2019 calls for service based on the 5-year moving average. That adjusts the percentages, so some of the cities did see your percentage adjustments, and that sheet is included in this packet. So if there's any questions, please let me know on that. As we look overall to our 2020 budget, well, during the 2020 budget process, if you recall, we had looked at trying to stabilize our overall increases and use our reserves and buy those down. And we were projecting a 7.5% increase would be needed up through 2023. And with that, we were going to buy down our reserves to be less than 20%, or to be right about 20% and maintain a 20% of the expenditure in reserves. And we'll show more dollars coming up here, but just wanted to remind everybody of that. As we look at 2019, we came in about 72,000 under budget, which then increased the availability of reserves available as we're moving forward to 2023, 2024. So with that in mind, and with looking at the 2021 expenditure budget that's being proposed, and this is with the adjustments that we'll talk about in a moment that George has put through, we're looking at a small decrease of $4,000 in the overall budget for 2021 versus 2020. With that, we're looking that we can drop to about 2.46%. We're rounding it to 2.5%, the increase needed for dues rather than the 7.5%. And by doing this year to 2.46%, which might be more, under the circumstances, just be more manageable, we maintain the 20% threshold in the overall reserves. And we're going to show that in a sec. So I move to that second page. I've got the operating expenditures chart. So if you take a look at that, again, the main changes in the operating expenditures are our increase in the administrative support due to moving the law RMS support position, which is Britta, from 0.8 to 1.0 being paid from by joint law. And I know the city of Coon Rapids, I believe, had agreed to that, and that was something that George had brought forth. We also saw a decrease in the system and maintenance support overall of 4.63%, but that also includes $10,000 set aside for needed work for Browser 2.0. So we did see some of our contracts reduce a little bit. If you have questions, George could probably jump in on the more specifics on that. So looking at that, again, that's why we have a slight decrease. As we look out to 2022 to 2024, we're assuming about a 3% adjustment. Again, this is just a forecast, and we will adjust those as more information becomes known on that. So moving into the revenues, kind of dues and reserves, again, we're looking at that 2.46% overall increase in dues. The law group is going to see the largest increase, and that'll be 7.7%, 4.4 for fire, and then it's a 1.9% reduction for central comm, which gives us the overall 2.46 or rounded to 2.5%. Now, if we were to drop, I know if law is looking at going, boy, this is hefty. If we were to drop it to 0% due to the shift, it would still be a 5% increase for law. So it's not going to change it significantly. But keep in mind, when you look at the dues overall, we're still paying less than we did back in 2017 and so that's something that's something to just keep in mind as you look at this. So we are paying less than we did back in 2017 for dues overall, because we were at 1,582 and today we're at 1,518 proposed for 21. So all right, as we look at the reserves, what this does to the reserves is this would drop the reserves down to our estimated at the end of 21, 28.4%. So that's still within that 20 to 25%. It's below. And so we're continuing to use the reserves kind of appropriately. So before I jump into the capital, are there any other questions? Are there any questions people have on this first part? And then I'll jump into the projects. Oh. Hearing none, I'll move on. And if there's more questions at the end, we can talk. But equipment and projects, this is representative of the special levy, that public safety levy that the Anoka County Board approves and the JLEC is authorized to use for capital type projects. Again, the projects that have been kind of authorized moving forward was the PSDS system. We are currently continuing to pay back Anoka County on that. There was just under $8 million overall is planned to be expended. And so we will have that all paid back to Anoka County by 2023. The current levy is $1.75 million and is expected to remain at that level through 2023, and the levy does sunset in 2023. The other projects outstanding are the upgrade of the 911 radio tower systems and equipment with it. This is required. That's a $6 million project. We've spent about $2.7 million to date. The rest is expected to be completed in phases through 2022. In addition to that, we just finished replacing the equipment for the PSDS system through Logis about a year ago. Back in 2022 and 2023, we have $900,000 set aside for another round of equipment replacement as the equipment eventually needs to be replaced every so many years. So, and that could get shoved to 23 and 24, but the money will be available within the fund based on levy that is collected. So overall, the proposed budget is slightly less than last year. We are looking at a 2.46% increase in dues. And there's a shift to law because of the increase or changes in the law RMS support staff. So with that, first of all, is the governance committee good with moving this forward to the whole JLEC board for a final recommended adopted budget in a couple weeks? Or are there any questions or revisements that people would like to discuss?
All right, is there anybody who wishes to discuss the budget as proposed? All right, and I'll just say from my perspective, I know these conversations have been ongoing because clearly we have our eye on how much the operation of all this is going to cost, and frankly, the Brita's function becoming full-time under the JLEC is a good thing, so that all three legs of the stool that we talk about, both Central Com, Fire, and Police or Law Records, are adequately addressed. The needs are adequately addressed. And so you hate to see the dues go up in a year where we're dealing with coronavirus. Frankly, all these decisions were made in advance of coronavirus, and I don't see much in terms of options for being able to undo any of that. So I don't know if anybody had any other comments where they wanted to weigh in on it. Otherwise, I think we would probably need to do I'll take a motion to forward this as a recommended budget to the JLEC.
Chief Wise, this is Scott Schulte. I first want to thank both you and Corey Camp for your continued work on the budget and keeping an eye on the bottom line. And then lastly, I would make a motion to approve to send this on to the Joint Law Enforcement Council.
All right.
This is Tom Ryan. I'll second.
All right. Motion by Schulte, second by Ryan. Is there any further discussion on this budget being presented to the JLEC?
I'll just weigh in that. I think we've been talking about this all year, and we're prepared for the changes. I know a lot of people are concerned about funding for law enforcement, and I think we all want to have a strong message out to our constituents that we're going to continue to do so. And I think at this point, I don't want to see us pulling back on something that we've been talking about. There are other places we'll have to make adjustments as our city budgets are impaired.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there anybody else? All right, hearing no further discussion, then all those in favor of sending this budget to the JLEC, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, all those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. So next, we're on to data standards. I didn't see Chief Caters being on as a participant before, but maybe Chief Caters is here now. All right, no Chief Caters. Is there any, is anybody else present at the data standards meeting with that there might have been an issue that needs to be discussed in governance?
This is George. We did not conduct a data standards meeting for this set of this quarterly set of meetings.
All right, sounds good. And frankly, I haven't heard any data standards issues pop up recently anyway, so that doesn't surprise me and it makes perfect sense. All right, so we're moving on to item 3, which is contract services and change orders. And according to the agenda, there is none. And George, I'm assuming you're in support of that none. We're ready to just move on to item 4. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chief.
All right, so moving on to item 4, PSDS update review questions. George prepares the PSDS update document, which also was included in the packet of papers. George, you want to just give a broad brush to what you put in there, or especially the changes in particular, or do you want to as is?
Sure, I'll just give you a highlight of it. FBR and FDM, Britta and Jason continue to do a great job working with Central Square, making sure that our RMS systems are on the leading edge of what Central Square produces. They are on the limited availability teams. They're working directly with the contractors day in, day out to make sure the product meets our needs as a public safety entity. Logis still, as always, continues to do great jobs for us. Their purchasing power has proven themselves, especially over the last couple of months, where we've seen software that usually cost us in the neighborhood of in the upwards of $8,000 is now down to about $3,000 for 2 different programs combined together. We're at $3,000. Again, our partnership with Logis is fantastic. They're continuously doing Nexus scans for us identifying issues, weaknesses in our system, and ensuring that we're meeting the BCA standards. They're still working through BCA issues from the last inspection, if you will, back in October. They just recently completed a project with us that will save us $19,000 on their billing. That's moving the legacy RMS where they were hosting that in their environment is now local into our environment, which makes working with that data a lot easier for us across the board. So again, Lode just doing great jobs for us. Code 4 Group, another one of those contractors that we work with day in, day out, doing great things. We're mostly working browser improvement projects. FBR data as our primary data source is a big project we have on the table, and we're really moving on that one. I hope to see by the end of this month, I hope to see that we're live with that FBR data. Rental properties, a project we just got done with, that's going to get released out there too. And that's basically a place for
I'm assuming it's not just me that had George freeze up and now disappear.
Yep, he's gone.
All right. I hope nothing bad happened to George. But that said, is that I guess George was just running through his notes regarding the PSDS update, and I guess I would encourage any or all of you to go through the documents related to his update. He does a nice job highlighting in yellow things that are different. Some of the things that we do definitely need to circle back to. The positive thing, the pulse point. We have every interest again. Remember, initially we were going to push this out, market our Anoka County being at the forefront of Pulse Point, which is the app that makes the connection between people who are trained in hands-only CPR and AED use, and for those people who are in need. But the coronavirus has threw a monkey wrench and all that, and with any luck, we'll be able to circle back to that and still get some interest from the media in pushing this forward and highlighting what good things we're doing in Anoka County collaboratively to make a difference and help people survive cardiac arrest incidents. So unless anybody had any other questions, I can probably field some of them that might be related to what his update is, but if not, I think we'll be able to just move on.
Chief Wise, Samir Trude here. On the Pulse Point app, one thing I wondered about, since we probably have some communications people listening, is on the collection of AED data. I know they used importing of addresses, but a concern I had is, for example, our high schools have 3 or 4 of them, and now instead of listing 3 or 4 locations, they list 1 address on the Pulse Point list that I saw inputted. And in some of our large buildings, our Andover Community Center has like 6 AEDs in many locations. So our city count went down 10 or more because now there's just 1 address. And I know, because you help teach this yourself, how important it is to know locations within buildings. I'm not sure if somebody's inputting more exact data, because we used to have more exact data. I'll mute now and listen.
So I had a system blip. I only heard the last 15 seconds of that. I'm sorry.
George, we were just talking about the inputting the data of the locations for AEDs in the Pulse Point app. Is that each city was, I believe what was left off at, taking responsibility for locating the AEDs. And Mayor Trude was talking about individual buildings such as a high school where they have 4 AEDs, but the Pulse Point app only shows 1 address or 1 AED in the app. And do you know anything about how that app might be updated, or how Pulse Point might be trying to address large buildings that have more than 1 AED?
Lost him again.
Yeah, yeah, looks like we lost George again. I get a little glitch that popped up too. Mayor Trude, I'll just say, let's just circle back to that topic. I'm going to run.
Okay.
Officer Platts is my guy. And has been collecting all the data and providing that data on AED locations. And yeah, that's a big deal because there's a building the size of Andover High School. It makes a difference which AED you go looking for if you're out in the football field as opposed to a soccer field or baseball field. It might be two different ones. So,
Mr. Chair, this is Jason Nyhard. I do know that the AED or the Pulse Point app has the capability within it to do that. It can support multiple ones at locations. George and I went out and did some kind of initial testing, and you're able to drag the place you are on the map and put a specific, it's here right in this particular spot of the building using kind of a satellite image. So I do know that the app supports that capability. I'm not entirely sure what happens.
Great.
So I know that the capability exists, so we'll have to do some investigating and see why the ones at the high school and the community center got combined into one.
That'd be great.
all right. Thank you, Jason, for that information. That's helpful to know.
And I'm sure that Officer Platts knows that too, because I spent a little bit of time with him and showed him how to use it. So he should be aware of that too.
I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
Now, got you now, George.
So yeah, Jason, thank you for putting that input on there. Yeah, that's the one thing about it is all we can do is we can anybody can put the data into the app for where an AED is located. Somebody's got to go out and verify it, and that's one of the things that we do have to work with the agencies on to make sure. But so controlling that data is going to be a problem. We have to get the right people from each of the agencies out there, making sure the data is getting in as accurate as the cities want it.
Okay, that sounds good. I don't know. Does anybody else have any questions on Pulse Point or the AED address locations?
Nope.
All right, good. All right, so let's move on to Fire Protection Council. And George, I guess we did not talk about replacement on JLEC. Is that right?
Yeah. So because of our relationship with Logis, we do hold positions on their board of directors. We have 2 positions.
Sorry. Go on again.
Can you still hear me?
Yep, we got you, George.
So we have a primary, we have an alternate. I believe Chief Wise, you hold the primary position.
Yes, that's correct.
Chief Harlan Lundstrom was the alternate for the JLEC at the Logis board, and he has resigned from that position. Discussions with Chief Charlie Thompson, John Piper, we've come to the decision that Dan O'Brien would be a great candidate for holding the alternate position on the board of directors for Logis representing the JLEC. We would just need that approved by this as a recommendation to the JLEC from this committee.
George, I'm not familiar with Dan O'Brien. Where does he work? Which agency does he work for? And how would we know he'd be?
I'm sure you know Dan. He's been around forever. He's the assistant fire chief for the city of Columbia Heights. He's been a major player on the implementation of both the mobile piece for Anoka County and the fire FDM piece.
All right, and I'm assuming he's willing?
Well, his text to me when I congratulated him was he was voluntold, but I think that means he is willing. But
all right, and for the record is that I make most of I myself am able to get to most of the Logis board meetings because they've been doing them online for a lot longer than coronavirus. It makes it real easy to get to their meetings when all I need to do is to log in. And also the Logis board never seems to have trouble getting a quorum for making decisions related to the direction of Logis. For the most part, the discussions are about, or the meaningful discussions are about approval of a budget Of course, Logis operates based on dues, and that they're also a quasi-government entity that's not for profit. So that said, I guess it sounds like we need a motion to recommend Dan O'Brien to the JLEC to take the alternate position on the Logis Board of Directors.
I'll move it. Tom Ryan.
Mayor Ryan moving the nomination or the recommendation. Is there a second?
I'll second Tony Palumbo.
Second by Tony Palumbo. Is there any further discussion on the Dan O'Brien recommendation as alternate to the Logis Board?
Yes, Chief Wise, Scott Schulte. A quick question for my edification. If he becomes the alternate for Logis, does he automatically become a member of JLEC, or is he just a alternate to Logis?
That's a really good question. Tony, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know that he automatically becomes a member. That is a good question, Commissioner. I don't think he automatically, we can designate whoever we want to sit on the Logis board. So it's just to represent the Joint Law Enforcement Council. So I don't know that that makes him necessarily a member. He's just our appointed delegate, I guess is what I would say at this point. So.
And I guess I'd like to chime in and say that being on the Logis board or a voting member of the Logis board requires at least some interest in technology-related issues in city governance. So truly not every fire chief would probably be a natural selection for this. So I could see where it would be obvious for the Fire Protection Council, especially for the backup role that this is, that they would, that the fire chiefs or the Fire Protection Council would be looking for a person who has a particular interest in technology as it relates to government work. So I guess I like the idea that that the Fire Protection Council is interested in somebody like him, if he's apparently willing or voluntold, as the case may be.
Chief Wise, I think you do raise a pretty good point. This is a JLEC appointment rather than a Fire Protection Council. So does a Fire Protection Council have any standing in Logis, or is it just the Joint Law Enforcement Council?
So I don't know that the Fire Protection Council, I doubt that the Fire Protection Council, frankly, has membership in any other capacity on the Logis board.
Okay.
Most of the members of the Logis board are city members, and I think just the Joint Law Enforcement Council, it's at most it's one of the few entities that are a collaboration like this, and it may be the only entity like this that has a seat on the board.
Okay, if it's strictly a JLEC, then do we need, did Fire Protection Council also make the recommendation for Assistant Chief O'Brien?
George?
Do you know, George?
Yes, by Charlie Thompson and John Piper. They're the ones who gave me the name.
Okay, thanks, George. The only reason I say that is, should we do a courtesy to Fire Protection Council and having them vet the name before we recommend it? And it sounds like at least Chief Thompson has done that already. So on behalf of the Fire Protection Council, I guess I just don't want to get crosswise. I don't want to start recommending somebody who's a member of Fire Protection Council without at least their knowledge and consent before we appoint them as our representative, just as a matter of what we call comity, COMITY, just as a matter of courtesy.
All right, and I'll just wait. And if my understanding then is that the Fire Protection Council meets the day after the JLEC meets, is that right?
I believe that's the case. That's usually happens, but George, maybe you know more, or Jason.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to pull up my calendar. Yeah, so the JLEC meeting is on the 22nd, and the Fire Protection Council meeting is on the 23rd. So we would be meeting one day after JLEC.
Okay.
They got it as 17th.
Yeah, I see how we're getting the cart before the horse. So can we say take an action that we would appoint as alternate whomever was selected by the Fire Protection Council, or is that too broad to say that?
Well, let me counter with, do they have an executive committee, and can that executive committee make a recommendation prior to our joint law meeting?
Jason or George, do you know, do they have a decision-making body much like this one that meets prior to their Fire Protection Council meeting?
Mr. Chair, it's Jason again. I'm not aware of that. I know that there's a budget committee that generally meets before, but they have a little less structure with the subcommittees. I'm not aware of a executive committee.
Okay.
All right. Well, let me just say this then, is that I'll be the board meetings that come up for LOGIS for the foreseeable future, I'll be attending. So there really isn't a rush to name Dan. And Dan certainly would be more than welcome to attend as a public member of the board meeting if he should choose to in the meantime. And maybe we'll just add that as an agenda item for our next governance committee, just forwarding his name. But meanwhile, just I would invite him just to attend a LOGIS meeting just to see how they work. And maybe it might give him a little more comfort too with the idea of being a secondary role before he becomes a voting member anyway. It probably would be good for him, is my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Chair. I think that's a wise idea. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but I also don't want to, walk into a situation where we've made an appointment from their ranks without consulting them. And I just don't want to get on the wrong side of that.
All right, so sounds good. So George or maybe Dennis at the next Fire Protection Council meeting then, could you add an agenda item to take formal action then for Fire Protection Council to recommend Dan O'Brien as alternate on the LOGIS board?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Chair, then, should we withdraw the motion then? Until they have acted?
I suppose that we should withdraw the motion in the second then, and then we'll just take action on this at our next meeting. So was the motioner willing to withdraw their motion?
I'll withdraw.
All right. And I think I second, and I'll withdraw the second.
All right.
Okay.
All right, sounds like we're there. Okay, item 6, vision for the future. And there's nothing listed on the agenda for now, probably for good reason, that we're still just trying to get through this coronavirus business and get back to a little more normal. Frankly, I'm exhausted by online meetings and I can't wait for, it's not that I like seeing you people that much, but I really have a hard time holding meetings when I can't see other people. So I don't know, George, unless there was something that was, that's not on here that we should have been discussing or that you want to discuss.
There's nothing that I have. I'm trying to finish a bunch of projects right now, so that's really my focus right now.
Sounds good. So I guess, is there any other topic that somebody wanted to bring up at this point in advance of the JLEC meeting then in 2 weeks?
Mr. Chairman,
No.
This is George. I just wanted to make sure that Val had an opportunity to give us an update on CAD.
Val, do you have a CAD update then as it relates to the project or to the public safety data system?
No, I don't really have much of an update. We put the new version in our training environment, but it's not working. We have some major issues that are stopping us from going forward into production, so that's still been working on, but like everybody else, we're extremely busy right now, so it's been working on, but we haven't resolved the issues yet. And then we bought 2 laptop phones that we put out at the radio shop in our alternate dispatch center. So now we have a full functioning dispatch center. We're still operating out there 24 hours a day to meet some of the county and MDH requirements for COVID. So just kind of plugging away.
And then let me add, it actually reminded me of one other thing. I know Jake Thompson from radio resigned. Is there, maybe Dee can answer, or you, Val, are there repercussions for the PSDS system that you see coming that need to be discussed in front of JLEC, or has a replacement been named for Jake Thompson yet? for the radio
No,
piece?
I don't believe there's any repercussions right now. The job posting is out right now, and it closes, I think, later tonight, and then we will look at them. We've been working hand in hand with some of the technicians from Hennepin County and Washington County who have graciously agreed to help us out with some of our level duties that our technicians can't access right now. So everything's running fine. We don't have any issues right now.
Okay, and is Jake still working, or is he had his official last day?
He was done on the 2nd, and he's taking a 2-week break before he starts at Chisago.
All right.
You want to talk
Good
about
luck with your selection, because he's a tough loss. So I hope you find somebody good in the mix.
Yeah, we have some good candidates from what I've seen, so I think we'll be okay with, like I said, we had 2 Hennepin County techs out on Monday meeting with me and going through some stuff with me and our technicians, and Washington County, Nate Tim has been involved with us too. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to fill the shoes and be seamless, go forward.
All right. All right, sounds good. Any other topics for discussion for this committee?
If I can, Mr. Chair, this is Tony Palumbo. Maybe the chiefs can kind of give elected officials a little update on the reimbursement of costs for supplying troops for the civil unrest. Is there any discussion among chiefs on that? Do you know, Chief Wise?
Yeah, thanks for bringing up the topic. Yeah, the just for those of you who haven't heard, is that a number of law enforcement agencies in Anoka County contributed trained staff to the civil unrest in Minneapolis that occurred, I guess, early in June or the end of May, and that the cost for that was rather significant. State statute says that the receiving agency, namely Minneapolis, pay the bill for the costs of the sending agency, and between the sheriff's office, Coon Rapids, Blaine, Fridley, geez, I don't even know how many agencies sent people. The costs are fairly significant, and probably in the, I would think maybe between, as a total to every Anoka County agency, maybe $200,000 to $500,000, something like that. A bill that we're going to collectively send to the city of Minneapolis. And things such as the governor asking for disaster aid is a big deal, because I don't know that many people realistically believe that Minneapolis has the checkbook or the capacity to pay the bill for that yet. That said, the idea that Minneapolis or somehow the state of Minnesota wouldn't reimburse cities that responded in an emergency would be pretty outrageous conduct, because honestly, an agency like mine would say, fine, if you're going to stick the taxpayers of Coon Rapids who bailed out your city this time, we'll never send you help ever again. And that would be a horrible, horrible precedent to set. And I do know some state elected officials. I've talked to a number of them myself. They're on board with the idea of reimbursing agencies, but right now I know that there's hope that FEMA or the feds will provide money to Minneapolis to help cover these costs. But that will be an ongoing topic of discussion, especially among the chiefs. And frankly, we've been working with Terry Stoltzman in emergency management too, because we view the most likely route as being receiving funds would be through a disaster declaration being made by the president. So stay tuned on that. But I just want to assure every elected official, especially, that we're intent on local taxpayers not having to pay for the debacle that was Minneapolis, and we have every expectation of being recovering those costs. So I don't know, unless anybody has something else to weigh in, Doug or I don't know if any other police chief is on here on this conference, but if anybody else has any other comments, I'd be welcome to hear them.
Chief, if I could weigh in just for a second, Scott Schulte. We tallied just the sheriff's department and our highway division and the work that we put into the Minneapolis riots, and it's close to $500,000 just for the county.
Oh.
So I'm sure when we add cities, and it's going to escalate quite a bit. We've also looked at FEMA dollars as a reimbursement source, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through there, and it doesn't pay the full amount. The next place we're looking is through our CARES Act dollars that we're receiving from the feds. Anoka County received $43.4 million, and some of our cities received quite a bit of money as well. And those dollars, we think, if we don't have enough other ways lined up to spend that money, we believe reimbursement for that is appropriate. So if Minneapolis doesn't come through and pay the bill, and we don't want to jump through all the hoops with FEMA, which are plentiful, our CARES Act dollars seem to be pretty streamlined towards that reimbursement. But with that said, Minneapolis is obligated, and if they pay first, that frees up our CARES Act dollars for other businesses and certainly to pay back the county for our losses through COVID. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Tony Colombo here. You know, as I recall, the governor requested it, right, and directed State Patrol to take command. I think there's a good argument that state should be on the hook for this also, by the way. So if you check with your city attorneys, as I think indicated previously in an email, good, because everybody, I can't submit this as a joint law enforcement council because the joint law enforcement council did not send people. Each individual agency sent people, and they tallied their own particular. But I think there's a pretty good argument, and I would urge your city attorneys to take a look at it. Since the governor directed the State Patrol to take command of all law enforcement and directed them to request assistance from local agencies, I think there's a really good legal argument that the state's on the hook for it if Minneapolis can't pay. Just my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, excellent. And just like I said, just to reiterate, we just want to make sure that the local taxpayers aren't on the hook for this because of the disastrous precedent it would set if they just if this bill went unpaid by Minneapolis or the state of Minnesota. So, but it's a good ongoing topic of discussion for sure, because the mechanism hasn't been clearly laid out by anybody yet. So we've all organized, every city that sent people have all organized what our financial request is going to be. We have the bill. It's just a matter of sending it to an entity that has a checkbook that's willing to write a check. So stay tuned on that.
And Mr. Chair, I will bring this up as an item, another item on the joint law meeting.
All right, excellent.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Tom Ryan, I very much agree with what you just said from Blaine, and I think if they add it all up and talking to some of our people that have business in that area, they're going to be facing a lot of civil lawsuits also. There's people here that live in this city that lost millions. So I think they're going to see a lot of lawsuits.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question that there's more repercussions to come. This isn't over for sure. So, all right, with that, I think we can move on to number 7. The JLEC meeting is 2 o'clock on the 22nd. It'll also be a WebEx meeting. And then the governance meeting looks like 2 weeks in advance of the October JLEC would put it somewhere around, well, Wednesday, October 14th is the date that I saw. Is there any objection to putting that date on a calendar? Am I missing something? All right, doesn't sound like I'm missing anything. So our next governance committee meeting then will be Wednesday, October 14th, 2 p.m. Hard to guess with coronavirus. I suppose we should probably expect it to be a WebEx meeting. But if it winds up to be, if we're able to do an in-person meeting, my preference would be to do that, but only if it's safe, of course. And so stay tuned on that. Maybe this virus business will be more in our rearview mirror by then. So we'll see. So if, does anybody else have any other comments? Otherwise, I think I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, so motion second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good one. We'll see ya.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.